Chapter 16, page 110. So why do you think I put the chairs in a circle? Miss Rossetti said. So we can check out the girls? Diego asked. There were two girls at the group session, Kat and Eileen, a black girl who worked in the nurse's office sometimes. Because circles are never ending, Miss Rossetti said, and the girls aren't here to be checked out. At this session, we're going to see how brave everyone is. What I want to do is for anyone to start and tell us two things that they're afraid of. What's brave about that? Play asked. Well, let's find out, Miss Rossetti said. Would you like to start? I ain't afraid of nothing, Play said. Everybody has fears, said Miss Rossetti. I think we can all agree to that. Anybody else want to give it a try? I'm afraid anytime I leave Alphabet City, Diego said. You can let your mind wander, thinking about your woman or something, and stopping into another gang's turf. Then you end up getting shot or stabbed or beat down just for not paying attention. That's one thing I'm scared of. So you're afraid of street violence, Miss Rossetti said. Would you like to say anything more about street violence? Are you the only afraid when you leave your neighborhood? Yeah, more or less, Diego said. When I'm on my way to school, my boys got my back and I know I'm cool. If your boys really had your back, you could walk any space you wanted to and nobody would mess with you because you'd know there would be some comeback, King Kong was looking smug. Comeback ain't me doing no good if I'm being wrecked, Diego said. You thinking I'm going to be up in heaven looking down and getting happy over some comeback? Diego, if you die, you ain't going to heaven, Play said. Suckers like you die and go to Walmart. They got a storage area in the back for dead punk heirs. We don't need to make this personal, Miss Rossetti said. And we won't. I think that neighborhood violence is something to be afraid of, especially when you're young. Another thing I'm afraid of is getting caught up in a stick-up or a drive-by with some fool who won't know how to use a gun, just popping off caps and killing everybody, Diego said. More neighborhood violence, Miss Rossetti said. And the thing to remember is that violence doesn't stop affecting us when we get behind closed doors. The threat is always there in our subconscious. Do you agree? Not really, I said, unless some dudes are outside your door and trying to get in. That doesn't hold true for everyone, Miss Rossetti said. And people do handle their fears differently. How about you, Deepak? Toon looked up when he heard his name. He smiled, shrugged, and folded his hands. I'm afraid. Sometimes I'm afraid, but not all the time. He looked around and short of the small half smiled. Sometimes I'm afraid that my father will be disappointed in me. We waited for him to go on, but he didn't. We have expectations of ourselves, Miss Rossetti said, and people have expectations of us sometimes. We worry. As Deepak said today, about how we measure up. You got a little saying for everything we're afraid of, Play asked. Well, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And a lot of people have done studies on adolescent fears, Miss Rossetti said. And although I have some insight, I think we all can look into the problem of fear and come to some conclusions. Don't you think so? I guess so, Play asked. Anything else, Deepak? Miss Rossetti asked. Sometimes I think my mother will be mad at me, Toon said. Miss Rossetti nodded slowly. She looked around the room and then held out her hand toward King Kong. Mr. Sanders, I ain't afraid of nothing, Mr. Pugh said. I can handle my business and nobody knows that. Anybody even act like they want to mess with me, I'll go to work on their ass. So you're afraid that people might mess with you? Miss Rossetti said. No, I ain't. Ladies? I'm afraid of losing my child, Eileen said. When I come up here, my case manager was talking about how she didn't know if I could be a good mother, and then she was talking about how my baby could be put with a responsible family. I had a girlfriend who went away for 18 months, and Eileen started crying and turned her head away. We waited a few minutes for her to get to herself together, but she didn't say anything else. Miss Rossetti looked at me and gave me a little smile. I don't know what I'm afraid of, I said. Like, you know, like you say, everybody's afraid of something. I guess I'm afraid of something too, but I don't know what it is. Maybe getting old and dying? That don't look cool. I'm a little afraid of that myself, Mrs. Rossetti said. My mother lost her memory when she got up in years, quite frankly, and frightened me a lot. I even dreamed that I was losing my memory. So they put her baby in with this couple. They were like black middle class. Eileen had started again and again. And then when my friend came home, they didn't want to give the baby up. She said that family services put pressure on her too. Was she working when she came home? Miss Rossetti asked. No, she was having trouble. She was using again, but all she needed to do was some time, Eileen said. I don't want to lose my little girl. She's all I got. I can understand that, Miss Rossetti said. You got kids? Eileen asked. No, I don't think, Miss Rossetti answered. But I can imagine how it must be to have someone in your life you love and then you have to be taken away. Another important thing, I figure, I'm afraid of, Eileen said, is being in fire. I'd rather be in a drive-by than in a fire. Have you ever seen anyone who was injured in a fire? Miss Rossetti asked. No, I don't want to see it either, Eileen said. How about you, Miss Rossetti? I'm not afraid of anything, Kat said. The only thing you have to be afraid of is people, and I'm afraid of people because I don't care about dying. I think everyone has a secret fear of dying, Miss Rossetti said. We imagine. I'm not afraid of dying, Kat cut Miss Rossetti off. The guy that got me in here thought he could threaten me and tell me that he was going to do to me, but where is he? I think we need to take a deep breath, Miss Bauer, Miss Rossetti said. He's dead because he tried to use me like he wanted to use me, and that wasn't going to happen. Kat was looking fierce with her mouth all tight and going pale. If you don't if you're not afraid of dying, then you're not afraid of anything. And I don't need to take no deep breaths because I'm not afraid of restaurants either. I'm not afraid of restraints either. That was the end of group because everybody saw that Kat was going off big time. Miss Rossetti broke us down, and she went to the boys back to our dorm, and Mr. Wilson and the lady guard went with Kat and Eileen back to the girls' wing.